Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayat Mudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shlokir Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtikir. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Verse 5. Deshe taha kalato yosa avashtataha ta swatonyataha aviluptavo bodhatma sayujyeta jaya katham. Deshataha kalato yosa avashtataha swatonyataha avilupta vabodha atma sayujyeta jaya katham. Deshataha kalato yosav avashtataha swatonyataha avilupta vabodhatma sayujyeta jaya katham. Deshataha, circumstantial. Kalataha, by the influence of time. Yaha, one who. Asau, the living entity. Avashtataha, by situation. Swata, by dream. Anyataha, by others. Avilupta, extinct. Avabodha, consciousness. Atma, pure self. Sa, he. Yujyeta, engaged. Ajaya, with nescience. Katham, how is it so? Translation. The pure soul is pure consciousness and is never out of consciousness, either due to circumstances, time, situations, dreams, or other causes. How then does he become engaged in nescience? He referring to the soul. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The consciousness of the living being is always present and never changes under any circumstances, as above mentioned. When a living man moves from one place to another, he is conscious that he has changed his position. He is always present in the past, present, and future, like electricity. One can remember incidents from his past and can conjecture about his future also on the basis of past experience, but he never forgets his personal identity, even though he is placed in awkward circumstances. How then can the living entity become forgetful of his real identity as pure spirit soul and identify with matter unless influenced by something beyond himself? The conclusion is that the living entity is influenced by the avidya potency, as confirmed in both the Vishnu Purana and the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. The living entity is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 5, as Paraprakriti, and in Vishnu Puran, he is mentioned as Parashakti. He is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord as potency and not as potent. The potent can exhibit many potencies, but the potency cannot equal the potent at any stage. One potency may overcome by another potency, but to the potent, all potencies are under control. The Jiva potency, or the Kshetragya Shakti of the Lord, has the tendency to be overpowered by the external potency, Avidya Karma Samgya. And in this way, he is placed in awkward circumstances of material existence. The living entity cannot be forgetful of his real identity unless influenced by the avidya potency. Because the living entity is prone to the influence of the avidya potency, he can never equal the supreme potent. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayham Tatati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathamritam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamritamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I hope you all are well. Such a beautiful day outside, so I hope you've enjoyed your japa as well. If I make any mistakes on the course of this talk, I humbly ask for the apologies, for an apology from all of you. So today we will be discussing Canto 3, Chapter 7, Verse 5. And in this series of verses, Vidura Maharaj, for the benefit of all of us, is inquiring from Maitreya this question. If we are pure by nature, then why do we engage in nescience? If we are pure, if we are avyayam, if we are not touched by material nature, if we are Satchidananda, then why do we suffer? If we are a part and parcel of Krishna, then why do we have gaps and faults and misunderstandings in our understanding of our personal identity, in our nature? Why does the spirit soul, us, why do we engage in nescience? So Vedana Maharaj is asking this question on the behalf of all of us so that we can understand what is keeping us from truly understanding what our true identity is as the servant of God, as being part and parcel of God, and what instead, as so many people nowadays have come to the conclusion that we are matter, that there is only a set period of time in our lives. Once we die, it's the end. There's absolutely nothing beyond that. What leads us to make this assumption? What leads us to identify with matter? So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives various explanations. He gives one explanation as to why we become forgetful. And it is because of the avidya potency of the Lord. He explains that we are all potencies of the Supreme Lord. He is part and parcel, he referring to the soul of the Supreme Lord as potency, not as the potent. One potency may be overcome by another potency, but all potencies are under control by the potent at any stage. So by the potency of avidya, ignorance, forgetfulness, we are overcome by that potency of the Lord, being the potency of the Lord ourselves, and we fall prey to material illusion, which makes us think that we are this body. So here Srila Prabhupada begins purport by mentioning that consciousness is always present, and in the translation, Vidura Maharaj mentions that consciousness is ever present. It is always there throughout eternity, because it is a symptom of the soul. And the soul is immortal and ever present, as we have heard from the Bhagavad Gita. So consciousness, being the symptom of the soul, is ever present. It is there when we dream. It is there when we go through a major surgery. It is there when we wake up. It is there when we fall unconscious. It is always there. It is ever present. And Srila Prabhupada compares consciousness to be just like electricity. And so I have this fan in my room, and it has a light switch, and also it's a fan. Maybe some of you have this in your houses as well. So when the electricity, it doesn't light up the fan, but it's lighting up, when it doesn't light up the bulb, but it lights up the fan, where is the electricity? It is not just because, say, I have a light over here, and it is dissipating some electricity. So we can see that dissipation through the glow of the light bulb. But when I turn off the electricity, that does not necessarily mean that the electricity is no longer there in the system. The electricity is there in the system, but it is just not being dissipated by a source. So over here, right now, my fan is taking up the electricity, but the bulb isn't. But that is not to say that in the system, there is no electricity. It is always there. So Srila Prabhupada, he very expertly, he compares consciousness to be like electricity. It is always there. It is ever present in our lives, even if it may be harnessed or it is not harnessed, but it is ever present in our lives. He also compares it to a living man moving from one place to another. And so when we move from one place to another, say we are outside of the door and we walk inside, we are able to understand, oh, I've moved from this place to that place. Sometimes we have so much going on in our heads that we don't even realize. But we are, at least our senses are conscious that we have changed our position. So even when we dream, even when we are in major surgery, we have consciousness. We are under consciousness. There are so many recollections by patients who undergo surgery that they are able to almost come out of their surgical state, from their anesthesia state, and stand above the doctors, and they can recall what each doctor is able to do. So when they come out of consciousness, they are able to recall, oh, you did this surgery, you put a stitch over here, you cut open over here, you did this to me, you did that to me. And this happened actually to our dear Sachinandan Swami Maharaj once, and he was explaining, and his doctor was so dumbfounded, how is this possible? And he was giving the talk, and so many scientists were so dumbfounded and amazed. Oh, this happened? This really happened? So consciousness is ever present, even though it does not seem that it is always there. It is just like electricity, and it's such a powerful example. Electricity is always there, but it will be foolish to think that if there is not a dissipating source that is dissipating that electricity, like say a glowing light bulb, that electricity is not there. The electricity is not there, but the electricity is there, but the dissipating source is just not using it at that moment. So we are always in consciousness, even if it does not seem to be so. And so this discussion on electricity and light leads us to our very next topic that Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport. Why do we fall under the veil of nescience? What is it? And so Srila Prabhupada explains that it is the avidya potency of the Lord. Again, avidya is also a potency of the Lord. We fall under the veil of ignorance, and we're forgetfulness of our position. And by that forgetfulness, we do not remember our position as a servant of God, and instead we make conjectures of who we might be and what we might do, and we fall into what we've discussed in the previous chapter, into a aham mama philosophy, where we think that we are everything. And so, as I was also discussing with my dad yesterday about this topic, he was mentioning how when we think that we don't know, when we think that we know, when we don't know enough about a topic, we think we know everything. We think we are everything. And the same thing is happening here. When we don't know who Krishna is, when we are not in the sunlight of Krishna consciousness, and instead we are in the darkness of illusion, we think that we are everything. We think that a small croaking sound is everything. We think, oh, this raccoon is a very big monster. We think so many things. We make so many conjectures when it is dark. But as soon as the sun comes out, as it has today, we can see clearly. Small things don't bother us anymore. And I'm not sure if you guys you all have experienced this before, but during April, when it was raining so much, in May when it was raining so much, I couldn't even think clearly. It wasn't only that I couldn't see with my senses clearly, but my mind was foggy. My emotions were all over the place. I could not see clearly even through my mind. So when the sun comes out, when Krishna as the sun, he comes out, Godhead is light, nescience is darkness. When the light comes out, we are able to see clearly without the help of any so-called yogis, swamis, or mayavadis. So I'd like to read to you this small letter from Srila Prabhupada from September 7, 1972, that talks about this idea that Godhead is light and nescience is darkness. As it is our motto on the head of Back to Godhead, Godhead is light and nescience is darkness. When there is Godhead, there is no darkness. The whole world is full of darkness. The so-called yogis, swamis, mayavadis, scientists, philosophers, political leaders, all are different types of glowworms. So in the darkness of cloudy night, during the rainy season, the croaking of the frogs and the glittering of the glowworms are supposed to be very prominent. But as soon as there is clear sunlight or moonlight, all these insignificant glowing and croaking disappear. So our movement is Krishna. Krishna consciousness movement is not different from Krishna. If we therefore present the Krishna consciousness in right earnestness, then certainly all these insignificant glowworms and frogs will have no more importance. Please therefore take it very seriously and do it on the right path, which is not very difficult. Then certainly we will come out victorious all over the world. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Srila Prabhupada mentions, as soon as there is clear sunlight, as soon as the veil of avidya, the curtain of avidya is taken out, the insignificant glowing and croaking, everything that is scary during night time disappears. So I would like to share a small incident that happened recently. So I was leaving. I was leaving my room to attend Mangala Aarti at the temple one time, and I was walking down the road, and it was dark, and the only light that there was from a lamplight that was outside our room. And as I was leaving to attend Mangala Aarti, and this was the New Vrindavan, as I was leaving to attend Mangala Aarti, I became extremely scared. It was so dark. The only light was from the lamp. I couldn't see absolutely anything ahead of me. I was very, very scared. I didn't know what I should do. And I started walking very slowly. And suddenly I heard this rustle near a garbage can. I became so afraid. And I started to take some steps back. And then I saw a raccoon, this huge raccoon, just walk past and go underneath the fence. And I just chanted Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare very loudly. And I ran to the temple room. And I just sat there for until like 7 o'clock. Then later, when it became later in the evening, when I came out to honor prasadam with all my friends, all the teenagers were outside and we were having prasadam. We saw that same raccoon come out and eat some pizza in the trash can, and it was not so big anymore, and it was not so scary anymore. And I was eating the pizza, and as soon as it saw the kids, it ran back out. And so all the kids were looking, oh, how can we get this raccoon out? What is this raccoon doing? And they were so fascinated. And I was also so fascinated by this raccoon that I was so scared of during the night. I was so scared of this raccoon during the night. But as soon as the sun comes out, as soon as we are with devotees, as soon as we're having the association of people, we're no longer afraid of these very insignificant things, very insignificant problems that plague us during the night of ignorance. So this is one example that I've experienced of the power of avidya, or darkness, in not seeing clearly, not seeing what is truly the truth outside. I also wanted to share a story from Sachinanda Swami Maharaj that really beautifully explains this idea of avidya, or ignorance. So maybe you also have experienced something like this when you all were young. So one time, Sachinanda Swami Maharaj, when he was younger, like 7 or 8, he went camping with his friend Lawrence in the forest. And it was nighttime and they were camping, and Lawrence and him were the only ones in the tent. And he started, while he was falling asleep, he started to hear this loud sound, grrr, grrr, outside of the tent. And he looked, oh, what is that sound? It must be a bear. And then he thought, no, it must be Frankenstein, the 7-year-old Sachinanda Swami Maharaj. It must be Frankenstein outside here to devour us. And he looked to his friend Lawrence, and he woke up Lawrence, and he said, Lawrence, wake up. Frankenstein is outside, and he's gonna kill us. And this is our last moment together. Let's hug each other and keep ourselves company for this last moment of our lives. And so Lawrence also woke up. Lawrence was also very scared. And Lawrence was also looking around, what can we do? They saw some shadow outside. They got very scared. And so they started hugging each other and holding each other very tightly. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And Sachinanda Swami Maharaj put his head on the chest of his friend Lawrence. And not only did he hear a very fast heartbeat, but he also heard that some sound was coming from Lawrence's belly. So then Sachinanda Swami Maharaj remembered that Lawrence had eaten beans the other day. And so right now his stomach was making that grrr, grrr noise. So as soon as he realized this, he let go. And so he realized, and he was explaining how this incident showed him how the avidya potency, this curtain of Maya, it keeps us from truly seeing reality. What seems to be a large monster like Frankenstein, the very loud croaking of the frogs, is actually something very small, some glittering of the glowworms, some rumbling of the belly, some small little frog, maybe 2 inches, just bellowing very loudly. So some very, very small things become so magnified by the avidya potency. And the real important thing, Krishna consciousness, is very, very minutely put very into a very insignificant part. But as soon as the light comes out, Godhead is light, and nescience and darkness is nescience. Nescience is darkness. So these 2 stories, Sachinand Swami Maharaj and my small little story, they helped me see how whenever I see the sun, I can remember the sun is Krishna's potency, and the night is all Krishna's avidya potency. So when we realize this, we can think, oh, when I remember Krishna, I know my true position. And when I don't, I think that I am everything. And so this is also inspired by my dad. Yesterday, we were talking about this avidya and how even in modern times, we look around and those people who, of course, everyone, people who may not be as skilled at a certain topic, they think of themselves as the experts on that topic. And those people who are more and more expert on the topic, they think of themselves more and more unknowledgeable about that topic. And so this avidya karma samgya is relating it to modern psychology. There is this theory called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And basically what it posits is that confidence and competence are like an X and Y spectrum. So when a person is very, very confident, is very, very incompetent at a certain skill, like say, I am actually very, very, very bad at writing, but my confidence is through the roof that I can write very, very well, that my writing is the most amazing. Even though if someone reads my writing, they'll be like, Surabhi, what is this? I don't even understand anything. Like, do you even know English? But I'll be like, no, I know everything. But the more and more I read other people's writing, the more and more I write myself, the more and more I learning about the skill of writing, I realize, oh, it's more complicated than I thought. I'll never understand this. And this I'll never understand this is called the valley of despair in modern psychology. Where we think, oh, there is so much out there. I am so insignificant I know everything about this too. I'll never understand anything about this. And then slowly and slowly, as we become more confident, we become a little more, as we become a little more competent, we become a little more confident at that topic. But at the very beginning of a certain skill, we have this inherent confidence that I know everything about this. So the more we realize, so I want to relate this back to Krishna consciousness, this Dunning-Kruger effect also takes place in Krishna consciousness. The more we realize how great God is, the more accepting we become of our own limitations. So these cantos 1 through 9 all detail about the opulence of Krishna. So if we can give our full attention to cantos 1 through 9, to so many beautiful stories about Prithu Maharaj, Kapila Muni, so many beautiful stories also in canto 3, Narasimhadev, Vamanadev. If we give our attention to this, slowly and slowly we'll think, oh, I'll never understand this. I'm so low. Krishna is so great. But then as we develop that relationship with Krishna, reading his pastimes, it's starting to make sense. And we'll start to understand, oh, Krishna is a lot more complicated than I thought, but I have some understanding of him. So this avidya karma samgya shows up in modern psychology also, and I thought I would share that. So I think that's all I have prepared for today. If there are any reflections or thoughts, I would love to hear from every one of you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol, Mataji. Wonderfully explained. Very nice. We are really proud of you, Surabhi Sundarachal Mataji. Wonderful. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Surabhi Sundarachal Mataji. If anybody has any further reflection or questions, they can share in the Nityam Bhagavata Sevya.